Hi everyone, please take your seat. We're going to get started now. Thank you for coming to 100% Steam, how Dovetail Games' Steam-only policy has built the foundation for a new type of video game business. Please welcome Paul Jackson from Dovetail Games.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. So, my subject today is 100% Steam. And over the last 5 years, we have built a company and a hobby that just would not have been possible without our 100% Steam policy. And I thought, well, the first thing I would do is explain what I mean by that. What is a 100% Steam policy? Every piece of software that we sell and have ever sold is a Steam App ID. So that means it doesn't matter where you buy it, whether you buy it from Steam's own store, or from another digital retailer, or from a box product to any retailer anywhere in the world, it's essentially a Steam product, and it goes back to the Steam servers. And this presentation is about why we made that decision and what that has meant to our business, because it fundamentally changed our business and became central to almost everything we did. So I thought first I would give you a little bit of information about us, just to give you some context to the rest of the talk. So we were formed as railsimulator.com in 2009. We develop and publish the world's #1 train simulator. We currently have, actually sneaking up on 70 employees now, spread across 3 sites in the UK. And to better understand train simulation, which some of you may not have come across, perhaps I could ask a question. How many of you here, if you'd raise your hands, if you've ever owned a model railway set? Oh, see, that's a good number. Excellent, excellent. I'm among friends. And then, amongst you all, who has owned a copy of The Sims? Okay. Well, the relationship between a train simulator and model railways and The Sims and a doll's house is broadly analogous. It's not that close an analogy, but it's a reasonable way to start thinking about it, I think. I've always felt that was the right way of thinking about it. It's that sort of relationship. If you think about what a doll's house is and what it does and how you deal with that, and then what a digital representation of that would be and how much further you'd be able to take it, I think that's a good relationship between a Sims and a doll's house, and it's similar for a train simulator. So to give you a better idea of exactly what it looks like, we've got about a 1.5-minute video that explains pretty much everything we do. Okay, I think that gives a pretty good overview of what we deliver to customers. So to give you a brief executive summary of the key features I want to cover, I want to talk about the technology that Steam provides us, specifically in that, and how we use it, how that allows us to focus our business in a very particular way, that it's a relationship built on trust, which, as all of you in business know, is fundamental to being able to progress with confidence, and the confidence that our customers have in the back-end systems that mean everything will be all right. So perhaps the first thing I should say on this is that we have ended up with a very different business model to the one that we originally intended. When we set the company up 5 years ago, we had this vision of using train technology to create lots of standalone train games. We had this big vision. We were going to do all sorts of different versions, and they would sell. They would be essentially boxed product. And we would sell them at retail. And this is 5.5 years ago. It sounds insane when I'm saying it now, but 5.5 years ago, this was still a valid choice for a publisher. So we were going to make these different games. We were going to send them out. We would sell them at retail, and it would all be very logical. One of the things we needed to do quite early on was upgrade our software. So we knew that we had an update coming out about 3 months after the initial launch. We didn't really know how to do that. We were working incredibly hard getting the software together. And we were talking to Steam because they seemed like a really cool digital partner. And they said, well, we can deal with all of that for you. So our decision to be 100% Steam was entirely driven by the fact that we had this one little job to do about 3 months after we launched. So we got ourselves together, we launched the product, and of course what happened almost straight away was we found that the boxed part of our business wasn't really enough to keep body and soul together, and our Steam business took off. It wasn't obvious that that was going to happen at the time. It's pretty obvious now when you think about it. So we looked at what could we do with the Steam technology we'd sort of bought into, if you will, and how could that help us evolve our business model, because clearly we needed a different business model. So I think the first thing really to talk about is what is our business model, because I know a lot of people have been quite confused about that. They see all of the things we're doing and wonder what's going on. It's all about DLC. So we sell DLC packs. That is fundamentally what our business is about. We have 147 pieces of DLC. Actually, I think we're releasing another one today, and we released, I believe, 2 last Thursday. So we're probably up around 150 now. And we price those bits of DLC at between $10 and $50, depending on what that actual content is. And on average, and this is quite an important figure because I'll come back to it later, on average, every year, our customers will spend somewhere between $60 and $70 with us every year, on average. I mean, there'll be some will be higher and lower, but broadly speaking, $60 to $70 is about what we expect to hit. And one of the things that we found is that because we upgrade our software with each new iteration of our game, we have customers who are still with us after 5 years. So some of those very first customers that we had 5 years ago are still playing the game, are still with us. Okay. So, and this is I wanted to sort of talk about this directly and quite early on in the presentation, because this is another thing that's caused quite a bit of controversy in the Steam community. So if you know on the Steam store, on our store, there's a buy all button. And if you press that buy all button at the moment, it will charge you $3,285, which I think is a lot. Yeah. But that is not how we run our business. That is not what that's for. That figure will continue to grow. If all goes well, it will probably be around $4,500, $5,000 by the end of this year. And in 5 years' time, in 10 years' time, perhaps it'll be $25,000. I don't know. It's not what we're about. We don't want you to press that button. I mean, it'd be very pleasant, but that's not what we're trying to achieve. Our customers relish choice. So what we're about is providing as much content as we can that allows them to buy what they particularly want to collect, what they particularly want to use. It's not about the buy all button. It's literally about, if you're a fan of trains in California, you buy a Californian route, you buy Californian locomotives, and you're done. So this is all very much about offering choice to the consumer, not trying to drive them into buying tons and tons of stuff. And in actual fact, I'm very comfortable with our business model. There are two things that we're not going to do, ever. One of them is to sell you an experience and then force you to buy more things to complete that experience, or to have any hope of success. I don't like that. I know lots of businesses do that. It's fine. I'm not critical, but I don't like it, and I'm not going to do it. And the other sort of business model that I'm seeing out there is this: you make the game so hard that somebody has to spend more money with you to go further with the game. We won't ever do that either. Everything we sell is a complete standalone experience. It may work with other DLC, it may work together in other ways, which I'll talk about, but each of them should be discrete amounts of gameplay that you buy, and you know what you're buying when you buy it. That's really important to us, and I'm very comfortable with that position. I think that's an honourable business position. So, our model in a little bit more detail. We have a core technology, and we sequelize that. There's a newer version of that every year, and when we release that, we upgrade, we sell that to new customers, and we upgrade every existing customer so that they are all on one software platform. So we don't have any complexity with customers buying something that's on version 2 and this version and that version, and we don't want any of that complexity. We want people to enjoy train simulation, not to be worried about how their PC's working. Now, this experience is then greatly extended via the purchase of additional routes and locomotives. So in sort of common gaming parlance, that would be, our routes are, if you're going from London to Faversham, but it would be a map probably in another video game. And then the DLC are by and large locomotives, which are vehicles which you use on those maps. You can chop and change them, you can move them about. That extends the experience at your choice. Now, our players can then create and even sell their own content within a managed environment. So one of the things I particularly like is, as we build up each element of DLC, locomotive DLCs, working with the routes, what we can't do, what we shouldn't do, is create scenarios that require other DLC to run, if you see what I mean. So if we mix and matched it like that, we would be forcing you to buy extra DLC to run with the DLC you just bought, which is exactly the model I've explained we won't do. So we've encouraged our community through Workshop to create extra missions that are enabled for free, which enable people to both collaborate and to bring different bits of DLC together. And that's working very well, as I'll show in a while. Everything comes within a Steam wrapper. So that Steam wrapper looks after everything, and I'll talk a little bit more about that, but that Steam wrapper keeps everything coherent, keeps everything organized so that our customers have got what they want, they can re-download it if they need to, etc. Okay, so crafting hobby entertainment, and this is the key sort of message really, is that as our business has evolved, as the Steam back-end technology has grown, and as we've learned to work with it, we've discovered really that we're creating a hobby rather than a video game. For our customers, it's about choice. So they're choosing, they're often very frequent players. They have specialist interests, just like myself. So they have particular interests in what they particularly want to drive. They're able to collect that. As a result, our offering needs to be comprehensive. So we're creating locomotives from the UK, from the US, from Germany, and other countries very soon. This leads to a large amount of complexity. And the underlying Steam technology is so powerful that it allows us to manage this complexity safely. And when you think about it, it happens quietly, it happens underneath the hood, as it were, but without that, we wouldn't have had the confidence to build this business model. Or if we had built it, it would have been technically very complicated, and we have a number of customers who really just enjoy train simulation. They're not really that interested in their PC. Some of them are incredibly interested. It's a wide spectrum. We need to make sure that we can also look after those people who aren't that interested. So there's this wide spectrum. And we have to be careful, and if I'm honest, I think we've dropped the ball a bit sometimes on certain things. At the moment, we've got some DLC that isn't quite as robust as we want it to be, and so we're working incredibly hard to upgrade that DLC and get those upgrades out to our customers as we speak. And that's really important because, again, it allows us to drive this technology forwards with some confidence. So, why Steam is our solution? As I said earlier, there are kind of fundamentally 4 things that we think are critical to our relationship with Steam and critical to the way we've been able to develop this complex web of software with some confidence. Firstly, the technology, then the focus that enables us to give to what we're trying to do, the trust we have in the system and in Steam themselves, without which we really wouldn't have had the confidence to forge forwards. And then finally, the confidence our customers can have that there's a robust system at the back of all this that will support them and save them if something goes wrong and will always be there, and all of those things that make collecting and hobby really important. Okay, let me unpack that a little bit more. Technologically speaking, and I'm sure that many of you will understand the technology and how it works. All I'm really trying to do here is give you the context within which we see the technology, the context within which it helps us do what we want to do. So it enables us to deliver a common platform through regular upgrading. As we take the sim forward, as we release new versions, we keep everybody on this absolutely common platform. Now, for our customers, that's incredibly important because they need to know that whatever they buy will work and it will swap and it will do all of those things that are very important. It gives a customer ownership of the network of DLC, and one of the things I find amazing is I sometimes seriously doubt that there will be any 2 customers that we've got that have got the same DLC package on their hard drives, because the amount of choice is so great and because you can pull in the different scenarios, you can do all sorts of different things. Actually, we have very few customers who have exactly the same setup, software setup on their hard drives. So the Steam backend gives you that customer ownership, the customers know, Steam know exactly what everybody's got. Again, it's allowed us to drive for this complexity that most of us would never have dreamed of. They give us sharing and uploading tools that always work. For us, this is primarily Steam Workshop, and I've been discombobulated in my life when using some of these bits of software. I've not felt confident in pressing the button and downloading something and know where it'll turn up. Many people do have complete confidence in that. A lot of people don't, and we need to offer this hobby to everybody who might be interested. Gives us anti-piracy measures. We don't really think about piracy anymore. I mean, I can remember 10 years ago, all we thought about was piracy. Now we just don't even consider it. And it gives us what I think we all understand to be a world-class retailing platform, which is pretty critical to growing our business when you think about it. That's one of the strongest elements in the overall Steam offering, is the fact that they're reaching, I think they said yesterday, 75 million people have signed up to the Steam service. That's huge. Okay. The long tail and how that grows out of that technology. Lots of people have talked about the long tail, and I think huge numbers of people have misunderstood it. I think a lot of what's talked about the long tail is nonsense. But fundamentally, we are an example of one of those companies where the long tail clearly exists, and I just want to demonstrate that and demonstrate how the software sort of pulls that through. So very simply, the player experience loop goes something like this, because the complexity allows it to do all sorts of things. You have your primary route purchase, you buy your map. You play that map, and there's a process of upskilling we have to go through. So we try and upskill our customers, software tries to upskill the customers. As the customers play, they skill up. Hopefully that encourages them to want more of our experience, so then they buy new official DLC, more upskilling. That leads them into the workshop, where they're able to download more free gameplay as they mix and match the DLC that they're buying again, and that leads them back through to more route purchase. So that's the kind of, very broadly, the player experience loop we're looking for. How does that deliver that long tail? So this is a very small case study of one of our earliest products. It was called the Isle of Wight. It is called the Isle of Wight. The Isle of Wight was a product that was actually made by us before we set the company up, and there were thousands of sales before we launched on Steam. But it's now been on sale on Steam for 18 quarters. And in those 18 quarters, it's just increased sales, increased sales, increased sales, and increased sales. Now, there are a number of reasons for that. One is that workshop content has allowed us to refresh what you can do with that route. Another is that DLC can be used on it. We regularly re-promote it. But fundamentally, we will make as much money and consumers will buy as many copies, broadly speaking, this year as they bought 5 years ago. And as far as we can see, that will also be true in 5 years' time. So with every piece of DLC we sell, with every piece we put on Steam, as we give that wider choice, we bring in more customers and they buy across the suite of products. So there is something powerful about the bigger the store you've got, the more interesting you are to customers and the more customers you bring in. Okay. That gives you a view of the long tail from our perspective. The power of creativity. There's been some fabulous speeches here at the conference about creativity and how important it is to engage customers with those creative tools that you have. Now, finding ways to empower your consumers is actually, I think, incredibly difficult. You can empower them with very simple tools, and then they can't be very creative. So that's cool, that works in many places. Or you can empower them, as we do, with incredibly powerful tools. And we essentially give our customers exactly the same tools we use when we make our routes and our other content. I mean, they don't get 3D Studio Max, but within the game, they get the same tools. And that's a challenge. It gives an incredible depth of ability to the customer. But it's hard to do. You know, many of our customers have incredibly busy lives. They've got all sorts of things that they want to do, and learning to use professional tools with all of the glitches and complexities and learning curves that go with that, it can be more than they really want in their hobby. But that doesn't mean they don't want to share in that creativity. So you have this real challenge of, okay, so how do you match together the time and ability of your customers, the broad majority of your customers, and the creativity that you're able to offer them? So I thought, well, the first thing I'd do is I'd give you a short demo of the power of those creative tools. So this was a video we made 3 odd years ago. So it uses an earlier version of the software. So you'll see the lighting and one of the things aren't quite up to the modern standard. But it was we gave one of our developers an hour to make a route, to make a piece of content that we could sell. We didn't sell it, but we could have sold. That was the quality bar. He had an hour, and we said, right, well, we'll speed it up to 2.5 minutes, and that will just give people a view of what can be done. And I think it's fun, so let me show it to you. must admit, even now, I love seeing that. I can't do that, and I should be really clear. I've tried to do that, and I end up throwing the PC out the window. I get so frustrated because I just don't have the time or, frankly, the talent to do that. So we have this problem. We have creative customers, and we have customers who are time poor. Not all of them, but some of them are time poor. How do we allow the community to share that level of creativity with each other? And this is where Steam stepped in again with the Steam Workshop and drove our business forward in really interesting ways. So the power of Workshop for us, about 18 months ago, we introduced the first element of Workshop into the game, and that was to create missions, scenarios as we call them. And in the last 18 months, we've had 3,700 Workshop scenarios created by customers. Sometimes we've created a few ourselves and put them up there, but primarily created by our customers and freely available to share with other customers who've got the technology. And that has delivered 4,000 hours of free Workshop play, which is an incredible number to me. I was really surprised when I saw that. But the number that really surprised me was we have had 1.5 million downloads of those Workshop scenarios. And that's increasing all the time. So what we've actually done recently is we've added in September, we added in the ability to put the routes, like you've just seen, being created. We've allowed them to be created and put up on Workshop. And they're not more difficult to do, but they take longer. But we've had 50 of them already in the last 3 months, which is incredibly powerful for us, and we're very pleased with it. So by thinking creatively about the tools that Steam are giving us, we're able to give extra value to our customers, and that again helps create that long tail, helps keep the offering fresh. Okay, why is Steam our solution? And some of these things feel a bit obvious, but actually until you concentrate on them, sometimes they aren't. And in business, the power to focus, I think, is critical. So Steam allow us to focus on what we do best. They process our customer payments. I'm sure they do that for you. Compliance with local legislation. Some of these things are really frightening. You know, I have customers in Armenia and Azerbaijan. I have no idea at all what the local issues are. Steam deals with all of that for me. You don't have stock issues, you don't really with any digital handler. They handle the hosting of the servers, and they manage those large amounts of customer data. Now, we all kind of know that, I guess, but it's only when you sit down and think about, well, what do they do for you, and then think, well, if they didn't do it for me, I'd have to do it for me, and I really don't want to do that for me. I really don't. They do a brilliant job of doing this for us, and that allows us to focus on what do we do. Well, firstly, we fund our own development. That's been an outflow of that Steam process. So we don't do work for hire, we've never done work for hire, which means we are completely in control of our destiny. I think that's becoming more the model for independents like us, but it's relatively new, to be perfectly honest with you. It allows us to cater for and focus on the diverse needs of our customers. We don't have to worry about all those other things, so we can hopefully concentrate much more on what do our customers want and how do we give it to them. And finally, it allows us to execute our marketing, because for us, and for every existing Train fan, things get better the more customers there are. It all feeds, it's a growing world. And the more of us that there are, the better it will be. Okay, so it allows us to focus on what we do best. A third thing is mutual trust. When you're running a business, there is more stress, as most of you know, than you can imagine. Things come at you from every direction. There are money worries, there are these worries, everything comes at you. And having a trustful relationship with a big partner like Steam is incredibly important. So we've built up a very strong relationship with Steam over the last 5 years. We talk to them a lot. I do mean a lot. So 15% of our staff are focused on just working with Steam, talking with Steam, making sure everything's done right, making sure it all works. Now, our view is that if we call Steam a problem, then we're causing ourselves a problem. So we try and make everything as slick as possible. We fail, I want to be clear about that. We don't get it right, but we try. We try really hard to make sure it's a good process and it works for everybody involved. Timely payments. What a sort of boring thing, timely payments, and yet utterly fundamental. So we've been with Steam now for 5 years, and some of the checks we've got from them have been heroic. And in those 5 years, we get that check on time every month. For 48 months, we've got that check without, we don't even think about it now, which is bizarre. Those checks arrive absolutely on the nail. And when you're building a business, particularly when you're small, that level of confidence that the money is coming in is frighteningly important. We have regular communication. They are always there to talk to us. We never have any problems, and that's really important because there's lots of stuff we don't know and they can help us with it. And they give us welcome and honest advice. We haven't listened always, and normally that's been a mistake. And the example I would give really was quite early on, probably about a year in, Mike Dunkel was saying to us, you know, you really should be in these Steam promotions. He said, you know, they're really good, they really work. And we were a little bit, you know, well, you mustn't devalue, you know, it's all very difficult and very complicated, and we're not sure, and it wasn't a good time. And Mike just said, look, trust me, you will go in, you will do lots of business, your customers will like it, and they will buy more, on average, after the promotion than they did before. Well, that's counterintuitive, that surely can't be right. We went into the first promotion, huge amount of business, and as we came out the other side, our levels of business were higher. Now, that's probably a fact that you all know, you've probably engaged with that sort of stuff, but I really only say it to illustrate the fact that they give good advice, and they've really helped us, and we've learned to trust them when they tell us things. And that's a big thing for a small company. And customer confidence. So, our offering is complicated. You know, we don't really have any one offering for any one customer. It's a web, a network of software that all has to hang together. Now, we know that, and Steam know that, and our customers at many levels completely understand that. So they need to be confident that this is going to be here forever, that it's not going to disappear, that everything's going to be smooth. And Steam absolutely delivers to us in spades. And they continually invest, not only in keeping on delivering that level of confidence, but in telling us about it, so that we're able to move our business forward reliably. So it's all about that reliable and sustainable service that our customers can depend on. We do have customers that over the years have spent a lot of money with us. And we try and be incredibly respectful of that. Part of that respect is to be really clear about the strength of Steam and the fact that it's all going to be fine and you can trust in what we're doing. And that works very well for us. And it's what's, I think, really at the core in many ways of why our business has grown so rapidly, is that confidence that the customers can have that what we're doing is right and will continue. Okay, so to summarize, 100% Steam. We absolutely, as a company, wouldn't be here today, and we absolutely wouldn't have evolved the business model that we've currently got if it hadn't been for that early decision to integrate Steam into our back-end technology. So, for us, it's about the technology they give us, and we try and keep up with that technology. And if I have to say anything about this conference, the things we've seen, the Steam box, the VR, some of those things are incredible, and they're absolutely going to be powerful for us in the world of simulation. I think we are perfectly placed to take advantage of these new technologies and offer them to our customers, which is a very exciting place to be. The focus that we're able to give so that we get it right for our customers, the trust we have with Steam that allows us to build our business with confidence, and then the reciprocal trust we get from our customers that they know that we're here, we're established, and we have a back-end partner that's not going anywhere. So, that's our solution, 100% Steam. Okay, thank you. Now, I've kind of run through that reasonably swiftly. Is there anybody got any questions, anything I can unpack for anybody? Hello. Yeah, I think there's a lady coming with a... Yes, there is.
Yeah, first of all, thanks for giving the talk. It was really interesting. I'm curious about your... I wrote down my question so that I wouldn't be nervous. And, okay, thank you. And hold the mic far away from my mouth and screw up in front of everybody, which I just did.
You're doing fine.
Anyway, in your experience with the long tail model and your graph and the cumulative sales that just went up and up, I was curious how that affected your pricing of your DLC, like if you generally reduce the price over time, or if your kind of compartmentalized model of, you can buy one piece and enjoy it by itself, and then buy another.
Yeah.
If that means you tend not to have to discount DLC over time, and users, generally will pay for, like a user, like you said, a user that buys DLC
Yeah.
today and a user that buys the same DLC 5 years from now, I mean, is it generally the same price?
It's for us so far, we haven't changed our pricing model on any of the DLC that we've issued. So at one level, absolutely, it works in that as long as we keep upgrading the underlying core engine, as long as we keep changing that and moving that forwards. And funnily enough, the Isle of Wight is one of the ones we're working very heavily on right at the moment to make sure it conforms to the new standard. As long as we do that, and as long as it's still providing good quality to the consumer, then we think the pricing model works. I think one of the things we want to explore as we go forwards is, obviously, as we take bigger and bigger leaps with the changes in the technology, that may no longer apply. In the past, we've taken some items of DLC off because they just weren't conforming to a modern standard. But I'd like to think we'll be able to take them forward and to upgrade them as we go. It's a fine balance, and to be quite honest with you, I think the honest answer is we've never really given it a lot of consideration so far because it doesn't seem to have made much impact. I think now we need to at least consider some of those questions. Yes.
I'm going to cheat and ask two if I can. Sorry about that. So the first one was UGC and DLC. There's an interesting overlap there in terms of the content you're selling and the content people are making.
Yeah.
I was just wondering kind of what that's like, kind of almost competing with your own audience for content. I'm guessing there might just be the usual Steam thing of more people playing, it's awesome and everything's lovely. And the second question, because I am cheating, I'm assuming, and this might be my own stereotypes, that you bring in a non-gamer audience too. Would that be fair? And I'm wondering if you know anything about whether that audience have treated this as almost a gateway game and then come onto the system and started playing other games. And
it's an
if
interesting
that's
question. So bear with me because I'm quite dyslexic, so I might forget the two questions. So the first question was, is it all the kind of, surely it can't make any sense, but seems say the more people play and the more stuff that's going on is good. Well, it doesn't really make sense to me either, but it absolutely works, so I'm happy to go with it. And it does seem that the more we can offer our customers the ability to participate and to engage with the different bits of software, the more customers we have, and I'm sure there'll be studies done on that later, but at the moment I'm prepared to just go with it. What was the second question? Is it a gateway? Is it a gateway? So I don't know. I do know that we bring in lots of customers that Steam, I believe, are quite pleased to have, in that they're not customers who have come through Steam. They've often come in from outside, which is nice. As a hobby, I think what happens, certainly when we're talking to our consumers, we find that there are some consumers who see this as a part of a portfolio of video games that they're playing, and there are others who really do only do train simulation. And that's really nice. I mean, one of the things that I think we've found, which is an extension really of your question, is that because it's a simulation, we find that there are customers who do completely different things with it. We'll have some customers who will buy the game and really they just want to be creative. We have others who want to collect and use that collection to create very lifelike scenes. We think there are some who just like to collect, who just want to have a collection and they like to have it there, and which is kind of my personal preference with little model cars or whatever, and so it's interesting and it's very empowering that we're able to give customers the ability to pretty much treat the software the way they want, which I quite like. Isn't that? Anybody else?
I will confess, having never played the game, but I've checked it out and I've seen on the Steam store. I think it's also quite beautiful that you have a train game which runs on Steam. There's a nice sort of poetry to that.
We've always thought that was great, and in fact it causes quite a bit of confusion when we talked, it's Steam, that's part of you. No, it's not part of us. It would be nice, but no.
Well, my question is, are you happy with the Steam store? Because when I've seen your game, I mean, the way DLC is listed, it's like runs across multiple lines with commas, and it doesn't look, to me, even though I don't play the game, it doesn't look to me like a sort of the ideal way to present DLC, like hundreds and hundreds of DLC, which I guess you have. Are you happy with the Steam store, or would you like to see that developed?
Am I happy? It's kind of my job to be unhappy often. It's never perfect. Nothing's ever perfect, and it's my job to say it's not perfect. So I think the Steam store. I think we're constantly talking to Steam about the ways they can improve it for us, but we're respectful of the fact that we don't expect the Steam store to work around us. What I think what I think it's important to do is to build your own systems that plug into that Steam store, so that you can lead, if you will, lead customers into the Steam buying experience in your own way, if you can. I'd love to see the Steam store do some of the things we want it to do, but if it doesn't, then we'll find a way around that. It's fine.
Could you explain a bit of how you do that? I mean, do you have your own website where you kind of direct people directly to the DLC?
Yes, we do. We do a number of things. We drive a lot of Facebook interaction, and then we have our own web space where we can give quite a rich experience of the sort of things we're selling, and then the Steam buy button, which sort of leads you through. So we kind of back end the Steam technology there. And then the other thing is when you go into the game, we try and create an experience that allows you to see what's on offer before you start playing. And we try and do that in an unobtrusive way, and so you can never be unobtrusive enough for some people, but we try and get the balance right.
Hi. More technical maybe, but you said you update the game core engine every year. Do you ever have problems with people maybe receiving this update and then because of the technology change, their computer is no longer able to run it? The system requirements might have changed. And is there any sort of backlash from people that were like, well, actually, I preferred 2013. It doesn't run as well, for example.
I mean, you can find, so to start with the end of the question, you can find some people who are unhappy with whatever you do under any circumstances. And that doesn't mean you're not respectful of that, but the world has to move on. By and large, we try and make sure that everything is backwards. Well, it has to be backwards compatible. The reason I'm a little bit diffident about that is the really big upgrade we did was with 2012 when we put new lighting in. And it's fair to say that whilst that transformed our business, it wasn't great for a small number of customers. And we worked incredibly hard, but not hard enough and not fast enough to sort them out. And that's a lesson I think we learned very heavily, and we firmly intend never to do that again. So I guess when we were a smaller company, we made some mistakes. I'm hoping and praying that we don't make those mistakes again, but we work incredibly hard on it. And we now have a big team of testers, whereas at the time we had a little team of testers.
Hi, Paul. What's the potential in terms of users, do you think, for RailSim?
When we've totted it up, and the problem is there are no statistics for train fans, but there is some data that you can pull together. So plus or minus 100%, I think there are about 120 million train fans in the world. So our audience at the moment is train fans with PCs that we can find. In the future, it will be hopefully train fans with PCs and other systems like the Steambox that we can find. So really the question is can we find them? Are they living in the countries we can get to? And that we've tried, and I can give you any number of numbers, and none of them are very helpful.
What's the number at the moment?
That's not information I'm afraid we're publicly sharing.
I thought that might be the answer.
But much higher than I ever dreamed possible, I suppose, is the right answer.
I could concur with.
Any other questions? I should be... Oh, no, it's only 1:45. That's good. I can keep talking. 5 minutes. I've got the 5-minute board. Excellent. Any other questions?
Hello. You said you phased out some DLC because of compatibility with new updates. How did you deal with the customers that had that DLC, that they suddenly lost some value?
We left them absolutely alone. So when I say... so let me explain that a little bit better. So that DLC still operates, it still works within the technology, but we didn't necessarily think it was the sort of standard that we wanted to continue selling. So within Steam, what we're able to do is to take the DLC off sale so that it can't be sold to new customers, but the back-end technology still knows it's there, because obviously the danger is if you take it off Steam, it just disappears off people's hard drives. which is absolutely the last thing we wanted. So actually, we try and deal with that respectfully. And if one day we're in a position to upgrade those, and periodically we have spurts of upgrading, and then we can bring them back. But essentially, the customer needs to know that what they bought when they bought it is safe, and then we need to be able to offer, an offering that we think is appropriate at any one particular time.
If there's no one else, yeah, okay, I'll do a third one. I'm interested in, because obviously at the moment you're doing level editing, which I'm assuming is using meshes and assets kind of already in the game. I'm also assuming that having trains or having real locations introduces a myriad kind of licensing issues
Yes.
and various stuff.
Yes.
Is that something that just basically means that's something you can never do, or do you think that there's any way of kind of sidestepping that or adapting into that in the future? Because it seems like something, people make their own stuff for train sets. It seems like something people would want to make their own kind of assets.
Yeah, I mean, and there, so, gosh, there's a whole raft load of questions in there, really, aren't there? So licensing is incredibly important. We are protective of our brand, so therefore we need to be respectful of other people's brands. Regardless of what the law might say, we want to license stuff because we wouldn't want somebody else to use our stuff unlicensed. So licensing is important to us. We think it's the right and respectful way to do business. We can then extend that license to customers who want to produce content and sell it through us and have the advantage of all Steam systems under the right set of conditions. It's not something that comes up a lot because whilst it is, and this is something we've seen a lot really over the years, as the fidelity of these creative systems grows, it becomes harder for people to produce content at home. If for no other reason, then you need to spend $3,000–4,000 on 3D Studio Max to get a good product. So it tends to be that the number of consumers who are really dedicated enough, have the time, the talent, and the software to create, in many ways, if they want to then monetize that, or even if they want to share it in some form, they can come to us and we can try and figure out a licensing package. It is complicated, and as the systems get more, as the fidelity of the systems get more and more complicated, in the world of simulation, we're going to have to spend a lot more time on licensing, on thinking about the issues of, other people's property and how we treat that, because we're not making any of this stuff up. And that's both a challenge to our business and to other simulator manufacturers, but it's also, it's also a positive thing. It forces us to grow up and to be professional businesses, and that's very important. I think if the hobby of simulation and the particular type of simulations that we do, is to proceed.
Can I ask, though, given the amount of money that it looks like from your numbers that you're making, and the amount of customers who are willing to spend good money, year on year for the game, for the simulation, Andy, I apologise, I got told off on Twitter for calling it a game. But
it's both. It has to be.
It's both.
Video game technology to make a simulation. Everybody argues about what that means, and I'm really not bothered.
So you talk about your players, and I understand, your players aren't going to want to learn these tools, but it seems like the more entrepreneurial kind of people selling hats on Team Fortress may look across to your game and see they're selling trains for 10 quid a go.
Yeah.
So it does seem like something that if you could work out a way for them to play in a safe zone that avoids these issues, that there are people who would do it, who may never play your game, but would very happily make things for it.
I think that's very interesting. I'm intrigued by the idea that people who may not have the slightest interest in trains and train simulation may be able to make very good money, and we certainly have routes to do that and making content that can be sold on Steam. And I'll be interested to see, I think, if coming out of this presentation and various other things, if there are people who want to make money, who come to us and say, well, can we use this, can we do this? Because we're very supportive of that. And we already have a number of people making really solid livings out of producing content for us and allowing us to sell on Steam. I've got 0 minutes, I'm afraid. I've got to stop.
Just really quickly.
Okay.
Has anyone pressed the buy all button and gone through with it?
Yes, they have. I mean, in the early days, we put it on promotion when it was about $500 and people pressed it. But we just don't want people to do that. It seems inappropriate. Very good idea. Well, thank you, everybody. I know there's the VR presentation. Please, I hope you've enjoyed my talk. And see you again.